leader. And they don't like people. They lived in a big cave, and he had a gang of 30 men, and they terrorized the villages around there. What does terrorized mean?
To like scare people?
Absolutely. They were scared all the time because they'd come out of their cave at night and they would rob people, go to houses. They probably, I don't know if they had guns or swords or what, but they terrorized the villages around there. So one night they came out and they robbed 2 houses, and they just grabbed everything, blankets and food and any valuables they saw, and they just gathered it all up really, really fast, and they go running back to their cave where they hid out and lived. I can't quite imagine 31 men living all together in a cave, can you? That's what they did. They didn't like people. Well, they took so much stuff that they didn't pay a whole lot of attention to what they were taking, and it started getting really, really heavy on their way home. Can you imagine carrying all this stuff and going up the mountainside to their cave? And so finally they were all out of breath, and they said, let's go through this stuff and get rid of some of it. And so there were quite a few books, and they said, we don't need these books. A lot of people in Madagascar can't even read. So they just dumped all the books in a big ditch that they saw. And it's like, oh, that's a lot better. So they kept on running until they got back to their cave. And so they went way back deep in the cave, and they started going through their stuff. And Lahobi, their leader, he found one little thing that he thought, wow, what's this? It's little, it's not very big, and it's blue, and it's got like some switches and dials on it. You want to guess what it was?
A gem.
No. Good guess. He thought it was a radio. So he pushed the little button, and it came on, and he was surprised. Can you think of why he might have been surprised? Okay, let me remind you, they lived in a cave, and they were way back in there. Do radios usually work when you're like deep in the ground or in a building made out of cement blocks? You know, the radio waves that come through your radio? No, they don't. So he thought, this must be a really good radio. Well, in Madagascar, any kind of radio is something really special because most of the people can't afford them. And it's their only connection, you know, to the outside world and to hear all this music and talking and all that kind of stuff. So he was a happy camper, and it came on, and they started listening to it. But what he didn't know is it wasn't really a radio. Now, can anybody guess what it might have been? Can you think of anything that it might have been? I'll tell you what was on it. There were sermons and children's stories and music, Christian music, and there was the whole Bible. And it was all in their Malagasy language that they speak there. And they were so excited that all the 30 men gathered around and they started listening. You want to tell me something?
A TV.
They didn't get a TV. But you know what? Where would they have plugged it in? And this little thing that they had, you didn't have to plug it in because it had a little bitty solar panel on it. And all you had to do is lay it out in the sun and it would work. Now, can anyone tell me what that was, including the adults? Nope. Who said that? It was a God pod. Have you ever heard of that? I love God pods. They're so cool because they can give them to people that can't read, and the whole Bible is on there, and that's exactly what this whole gang did, is they listened to that and listened. And then one of the gang members, he said, I wonder what was in all those books that we dumped back there. He says, maybe there was more of this cool stuff. And so they retraced their steps, and they went and they found that ditch, but it had been raining a lot. And they looked at the books, and they were just all soaking wet and covered with mud and coming apart. And they were kind of disappointed because they thought that maybe they could find out some more about the God that they had learned about on the God Pod. They didn't know that there was a God that loved them. They didn't know that there was even a chance that all the horrible things that they had done to people could be forgiven. And when they heard that, they were so happy. But they saw all those ruined books. And then somebody saw just one book with the others. And he said, "Look at this one. It's dry." And he started leafing through the pages, and it was okay. It wasn't falling apart. And on the front it said, "Holy Bible." How did that stay dry? You have a guess?
Because of God.
You're right. Yes, I didn't think you'd know. I'm proud of you. They took this as a sign. And so they started, there must have been some of them that could read, because they started reading the Bible and studying. And they finally came across where it said that on the seventh day God rested and made it holy, and that they should do that too. So they started doing it. But they didn't know that there was a church that could do it. But after some time went by, they heard that there was a church where people went to church on Sabbath. And so they dressed differently, and they cleaned themselves up really good and tried to disguise themselves because no one liked them. Can you imagine why? Aaron was afraid of them. And so here goes Jehobi with his 30 guys from the Hope, and they went to this town. How long does it take you to get to church? A few minutes? An hour? How long?
45 minutes.
Yay, that's how long it takes me sometimes. Almost. They had to walk for 3 days. You think they really wanted to go to church? I think they did. And what do you think the first thing was that they did when they got there? They all joined a class, a special class called the baptismal class. And what's that class for?
Baptizing.
That's right. You learn.
To learn about so you can get baptized.
That's right. You kids are smart. So they all joined, all 31 of them, and they studied, and then one lovely day they were all baptized. And they went back to their own town, village,